In 2024, a virus spreads across the world, infecting people who feed on human flesh and blood, in a style reminiscent of The Last of Us. One Christmas night, Manel is looking after his nephew with his fiancée Julia. He enjoys himself and shows his cat, Luculo, who is home alone, through the camera. At the end of the night, his sister Bullen says goodbye to the couple as they return home. On the way, Julia drives while expressing her dissatisfaction with Manel's refusal to have children. Manel says it's not the right time yet, but Julia vents, saying she can't take it anymore. At that moment, they almost have an accident, but Julia manages to swerve, avoiding a worse outcome. However, before they can process what happened, a truck crashes into their car, which was blocking the road, causing a serious accident. A year passes and Manel wakes up at home. He is alone with his cat. It turns out that Julia died in that car accident. He hears a news report about a virus spreading worldwide, similar to COVID-19. However, this virus physically alters people. He leaves home in his car and goes to the dock. There he meets two women interested in buying his boat. While collecting the boat's receipts, he sees his beloved's bracelet pinned to the bed, and this awakens happy memories. He doesn't complete the sale and leaves. On the way, he stops at the market, and just like during the COVID era, people are preparing for a long quarantine, buying groceries in large quantities. He finishes his shopping and goes home. While taking out his groceries, he hears the news on TV, which says that the authorities are managing to contain the disease. A short time later, his sister video calls him. Her husband is in the military and he received an emergency summons to go to another city tonight. They will receive a house and stability. Bullen invites him to go with them so he won't be alone. A plane will leave in the morning, and Manel should be on it. He initially refuses, but eventually accepts. In the morning, he takes Lucullus and his suitcase and heads to the airport. On the way, the news reports that a new variant of the virus has emerged and the incubation period is only a few minutes. While in line to board, he texts his sister to let her know he's about to leave when suddenly, flights begin to be cancelled one after another, causing widespread outrage and chaos. A civil protection alert sounds on everyone's cell phones at the airport, only making the situation worse. Bullen calls Manel and tells him about the virus variant and asks him to return home and lock himself in. Meanwhile, a man steals a gun from a security guard and everyone runs, causing great confusion. Like Manel, thousands of people are trying to get home, causing an intense and gigantic traffic jam. Everything stops and it's impossible to move the car, so he decides to abandon the car and walk home. After a long walk, he arrives in his neighborhood and realizes something is happening at his neighbor's house. The army has sealed off his neighbor's house and surrounded the area. The man was uncontrollable, behaving in a wild, almost superhuman way, like a zombie. The virus was already there. Manel goes home and falls asleep. The next day, he wakes up to a call from Bullen. She informs him that the government will set up quarantine zones to house people, but that he shouldn't go. He should stay home to avoid unnecessary contact. He watches videos showing infected people attacking others, which terrifies him. He is interrupted by another alert from civil defense, which then begins limiting commercial activity in the country. With that, he rushes to the market and finds absolute chaos. People are looting the market and taking everything they see, leaving him with few options. With no other alternative, he goes to other places to look for food. At a gas station, he sees a wounded police officer run in and lock himself in the convenience store. Meanwhile, people are running in desperation. An infected person is attacking them and knocks down another police officer. Manel tries to help, but the infected person notices his presence and attacks him. The officer on the ground saves him with a gunshot, just before taking his own life. Beside him, the police officer in the convenience store begins to transform. Terrified, Manel grabs his backpack and runs away. Still shaken by what he just saw, Manel returns home and locks himself in. While listening to an announcement from the authorities informing of an evacuation and mandatory confinement of the cities, he prepares by building shelters for his house, preparing for a possible zombie apocalypse. The evacuation begins, and Manel stays hidden at home with his cat, just as his sister asked. While feeding his pet, the doorbell rings. It was the army announcing the evacuation. They knock insistently on the door ordering him to come out, but Manel remains silent until they give up and leave. 2 weeks later, the neighborhood is deserted. Manel records a video message for his sister, but there is no internet signal anymore, so he can neither receive nor send messages. He is running out of supplies and decides to leave home in search of food. He breaks into abandoned houses trying to find something, but finds nothing. He finds a house near his and enters. Inside, he finds an elderly woman alone in her wheelchair. Her name was Gabriella. She had been left behind by her family, who fled to the shelter. They talk about the lack of food, and Manel emphasizes that he hasn't been able to find anything. Gabriella then helps him by giving him information about the most likely places to find food, in the good old-fashioned gossipy neighbor style. He does so and begins to find food, a little in each house. In one of them he finds a motorcycle, which makes it easier for him to go further. He finally finds a house with a full pantry, and this provides them with a long-awaited dinner. After the meal, he goes home and falls asleep. Sometime later, Gabriella calls him on the walkie-talkie and asks him to tune to 100 on some radio. He tunes in, and while soft music plays, a message comes on. A woman invites the survivors scattered throughout the city to gather to be taken to a supposedly safe place. Gabriella is skeptical, but Manel sees an opportunity to survive. She says she'll only get in his way, but he insists he'll take care of her and won't leave her behind. With a little persuasion, she agrees. The idea is to go on his boat to the meeting point. In the morning, Manel can't contact Gabriella by radio. She doesn't answer. So he decides to go to her house, and upon arriving, he finds a note from the old woman asking him to save himself. She had taken her own life that night, intending to increase her new friend's chances of survival. Manel is very saddened by what happened and goes out into the streets when suddenly he is attacked by an infected person. He fights fiercely for his life, but the infected person is unstoppable. Manel manages to load his weapon and shoots the infected person in the head. He is now alone and needs to leave. He rides his motorcycle along a trail in a forest, but halfway there, a horde of infected fiercely pursues him. Even on a motorcycle, they manage to get close to Manel. He rides as fast as he can, but ends up falling when he encounters a pile of bodies in the path. He tries to start the motorcycle but can't. The only solution is to abandon the vehicle and flee on foot. After running for a long time, he manages to reach the dock and locks the dozens of infected behind a security gate, managing to save himself. Despite this, there are no boats anchored at the dock and he finds himself without a way out. Luckily, in the distance he spots a boat adrift and decides to dive to reach it. Upon arriving, he starts the engine, but it doesn't work. While trying, he hears a noise coming from the room below and goes to check. Upon opening the door, he finds an infected baby and is shocked. The boat didn't start, but he found a smaller boat and continued on with it. However, during the night the boat stops working, leaving him stranded. Luckily, a boat approaches and finds him. On board are armed men with unfriendly faces. But this is his only way out, and he boards. The boat takes them to a ship, where he meets the captain and his translator, Viktor Prochenko. Manel introduces himself and tells his story. The captain doesn't seem very friendly, so Viktor softens his stance. He takes Manel to his room and leaves him there, but before leaving, Manel asks if they found any more survivors along the way, but Viktor says no. Several hours pass, and in the middle of the night, Manel sees survivors calling for help through the window, but in the morning he doesn't see them and asks Viktor about them, but he insists that no one arrived during the night. Manel decides not to question it and helps them as best he can, but little by little he notices that something is wrong. He realizes there's a locked door on the ship and questions Viktor, but he insists that Manel shouldn't ask questions if he wants to stay alive. But Manel needs to do something to escape, or he'll be the next one arrested. During the night he gathers his things and tries to escape the ship, but first he goes to the locked door at the back of the ship and sees two men tied up and gagged. He frees them, but one of the men makes a lot of noise and ends up alarming one of the ship's guards. Manel finds himself cornered, but Viktor appears and tries to help him, but ends up fighting the man and killing him. Now they need to escape together before they are captured. Silently they go to one of the boats outside the ship and prepare to set sail, but one of the men sees them and shoots, hitting the hostage who was saved. They also hit Victor in the shoulder and Manal speeds away, managing to escape. They reach a beach and Manal helps Victor walk to an abandoned car. They are going to a distant heliport. The idea is to take a helicopter and go to the government shelter in the Canary Islands. They finally arrive at the heliport, but there are no helicopters there. Instead, they encounter infected people who attack them, but Manal manages to stop them. They take refuge in a hospital next to the helipad. Victor is badly wounded, so they need to remove the bullet first. Manal needs medication to operate on Victor, so he leaves him alone with Luculo and goes to look for it. While searching, he hears voices and children's laughter coming from upstairs. He decides to follow the sound of the voices and ends up in a part of the hospital where there are infected people. Even so, he ignores the danger and manages to talk to someone who was on the upper floor. With the noise, he is surprised by an infected person who attacks him, but he manages to escape and kill it. But then a horde of infected people who heard the noise find him and chase him. Manal runs and returns to where he left Victor and Luculo, but they were no longer there. Suddenly, a woman appears and helps him escape. When he gets there, he realizes that Victor and the cat were already there. The woman who helped them is Lucia. With her were another woman, Cecilia, and 3 children. The 2 women help Victor and remove the bullet. Manal tells the girl that they ended up there because they were looking for a helicopter, but when they arrived there was nothing left. Lucia then takes him to a window and shows him a helicopter outside. The problem is that the area is infested with infected, making it almost impossible to reach the ship. The next day, while observing the outside, his cell phone receives a signal and messages from his sister arrive all at once. He replies to Bullen, but at that moment he hears gunshots. It was the men from the ship they escaped from. Immediately he runs and hides with Victor and the girls and they prepare to flee through the back. The route is challenging and there are infected in the way, but they need to hurry because the sound of gunfire is getting closer. While trying to cross a door, an infected jumps on them and ends up biting Cecilia, but they don't have much time, so she has no choice but to turn back and get away from them before she transforms. They continue their way through the hospital. While Manal provides cover, Lucia opens the door and helps the children. However, one of them spots her infected mother and calls out to her. This alarms other infected individuals, surprising them and forcing Manal and the girl to hide in a closet. But the attack soon ceases with gunfire that stops them. The men from the ship had already caught up with them. But Manal manages to reach his friends. Now they just need to get past the infected outside. To do this, Manal sets up a structure that serves as a shield against the infected, making it easier for them to protect themselves and the children. Even so, there are many, and the situation becomes very difficult. They manage to reach the aircraft, but Victor has difficulty starting the helicopter. Manal decides to leave the aircraft to delay the infected, and as soon as he manages to start it, the men from the ship catch up with them, trapping them. Manal sees no choice but to unleash the dozens of infected on top of the bad guys, putting himself in danger. Victor takes off, and Manal cuts a path with an axe through the infected while Lucia throws a ladder for Manal to climb aboard. They manage to escape. During the journey, thinking the worst was over, Manal receives a call from Bullen. He informs him that they have secured a helicopter and are heading to meet him in the Canary Islands, but his sister, desperate, begs them to turn back and not go there. At that moment, fighter jets fly overhead and they hear on the radio that they have been spotted invading their airspace. That was the summary of the movie Apocalypse Z. If you liked it, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Until next time.